Welcome to Own Your Dopeness. This is a podcast that was created to uplift, inspire, empower, and enrich us to be our dopest and greatest selves. I am your host this morning, Sister Aisha, the Mental Resurrectionist. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is a beautiful day. We thank Allah for this day. Today, I'm dealing with a subject that I want to approach kind of with trepidation because it's a really serious subject matter, and I want to make sure that I'm sensitive with this subject. I want to make sure that I'm covering certain aspects of this particular subject that inshallah may be beneficial for us all. Okay? All right, let me just get my bearing together. Today, we're going to discuss promiscuity and the Black woman. So I just want to go over the definition first, because we should always parse words when we are desiring to get an understanding of it. Promiscuity. What is promiscuity? The state of being promiscuous. What is promiscuous? Having or characterized by many transient sexual relationships, demonstrating or implying an undiscriminating or unselective approach, indiscriminate or casual. Having or involving many sexual partners. So these are some of the definitions that were given for defining what promiscuity is, right? So we know that a lot of women are labeled promiscuous. They're fast, they're loose, they're easy. And so these are behaviors that are truly abnormal, especially for Black women. So we're going to go into the causes of promiscuity. We're going to go into just a little bit of depth in helping us to gain a greater understanding. A lot of women, a lot of us as Black women have gone through a lot of relationships, trying to find that one that is the perfect fit for us, right? And in doing so, sometimes we just give ourselves casually away. And, it becomes something unsacred because we're just giving ourselves away, free for all. But there's a reason why. There are reasons why we have adopted such behaviors. So when I think of promiscuity, I think of women who are totally other than themselves, right? And they're searching for something. There's a void, there's something missing there. So they're searching for something, and in the search, sometimes we lose ourselves. When we go back into the time, and this is a part where we really don't want to talk about, but when we go back and examine the life of a slave, when we were enslaved by Caucasians, we will see that we were taken out of our natural realm, and we were kidnapped, we were raped, we were robbed of our sexual nature, we were robbed of our sacredness, we were tortured, we were denatured, like all of the negative words, adjectives that can describe the animalistic behavior that went behind us being so disconnected from ourselves, so humiliated. These are words that describe a little bit of our experience. So we cannot negate what happened to our ancestors during slavery. And when you have such a brutal force that is inflicted on a woman, she loses a part of herself, and it affects her in the future. It affects her relationships in the future. It affects her for a very long time. So we look at the barbaric behavior that was implemented on us, and we never forget that. We don't ever want to be so we don't ever want to be so far removed from what our ancestors experienced that we can't go back and see how it has affected us in our present lives, is what I'm saying. So we went over what promiscuity is, and some of these behaviors that we are demonstrating now, it comes from that time of those bestial acts of rape and molestation and incest. It comes from that. So we can't get away from that. I can't stress that enough, because that's where we're going to start this today in terms of our foundation. So a lot of these behaviors stem from that, and the behaviors that come out of it are, we are addicted to things that are unnatural to us. Now, I'm not saying that sexual intercourse is not natural. Lovemaking with your spouse is not natural. It's very natural. But we have to learn how to reappreciate and learn how to respect and learn how to gain a better understanding and comprehension of where we've come from. And we have to be able to implement that into new behaviors so that we can heal and repair what has been lost. So I have a lot of different notes that I've taken, and so I'm going to kind of target different things. I'm going to kind of be all over the place a little bit, so just bear with me, because I want to get this across as swiftly and as the best I can. So, whenever you have a woman who has been sexually compromised, right? She's been raped, she's been molested, she has been through a traumatic experience sexually. This is considered abuse of the woman. The minister did a lecture years ago, I think it was in the 90s, like 94, A Nation Can Rise No Higher Than Its Woman. And with this, he spoke about the disrespect and degradation of the woman, the black woman specifically. And he wanted to give the women a word, a divine word that would help us heal and come out of certain conditions that we have been in. I really would advise all of us to listen to that message. A Nation Can Rise No Higher Than Its Woman. It was in Atlanta, Georgia. And if you go on YouTube, you will be able to find that lecture. Sex is natural. Sex for a woman is something that is, and for a man, is something that has been divinely given to us as a means and methods to procreate with our spouse. And for a lot of reasons, we have taken the sacredness out of the act. And we have allowed society to dictate to us how we should express ourselves and how we should behave in sexual manners. And those conditionings have really ill-affected us in our lives. Some women say that they want power, they want control, they want respect, they want money, they want all of these things. And sometimes we have used our sexual prowess as a means to get that type of stature. And we've lost ourselves because of that. Some women say, well, what is the harm in sleeping around? You know, like everybody does it. Some women, you know, we're going to go into reasons as to why. Some women may have been in relationships where they have been mistreated by men, they've been cheated on, and they've seen men, or they may have seen men in their families, not necessarily in relationship, but in their families or their circle of friends, and they have seen men misuse women, and they go through women. And if men can do it, then why can't I? If men can sleep around and have so many partners, then why can't I? You know, this is the mindset that we have adopted. What's the harm in it, right? But we don't realize that every time that we give ourselves to a man, we're losing a part of ourselves. Every time we give ourselves to a man, we are setting up an impact for future relationships. Whatever we have gone through in our past, we bring it into our present if we haven't healed from it. And it creates problems for the future. I want to read something that I wrote on promiscuity years ago that can speak to this topic. How many multiple partners have we allowed inside of our wombs? Right? We give ourselves away freely and willingly for sexual pleasure. What does it mean to be promiscuous? And so we went over that, right? Even when you use protection, right? Will we lay down with multiple men and scream disrespect when a man trashes us and treats us for the behavior that we're displaying, right? Most times when men do this, they charm us and they get from us our sacredness, and then they go on to someone else to do the same thing over again. So it's a cycle that repeats. How does this hypersexuality with numerous men develop self-respect, right? We talked about money, power, and respect. How does it develop this self-respect if we are sleeping with so many numerous men? How does it cultivate sacredness, internal worth? It doesn't. It doesn't. It actually creates a void and disconnect to our higher selves. It is psychologically destructive, and it keeps us ever revolving around an animalistic stage. Self-respect is one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves, right? And I just want to stop right there and go to another part. We should love ourselves a little greater. Each time we lay down with a different man to engage in sexual intercourse, we give a part of ourselves away. We are sharing body tissue, energy, and DNA through each act, and we are allowing the emittance of potential risk factors inside of us that can cause irreversible damage to our wombs. HPV, HIV, STDs like herpes, vaginal warts, chlamydia, right? Gonorrhea, even to the point of getting abortions. We destroy our wombs. We cannot continue to be careless and reckless with our sacredness. Body fluids such as semen, sweat, saliva, blood, and tears all carry DNA. If we are engaging in unprotected raw sex, sometimes the emittance can carry just as great as an infection as the expelling of semen itself. Even with the use of protection of condoms, infections can be spread through areas not covered by a condom. You could be harboring disease and not show signs of it until years later, right? This is just on a physical level, right? You know, a lot of women, we don't realize what we're giving away because we don't realize our self-value. We don't realize who we are divinely, who we have an obligation to represent to those coming up behind us. So because we don't understand ourselves, because we don't value ourselves, we just haphazardly give ourselves away, right? Some of us are the fun girl, always want to have fun, always want to be involved in going somewhere, always running the streets. We're in the clubs, drinking, right? A lot of alcohol and substance abuse also gives way to this behavior, right? Then you have the silent seductress, right? Where she uses her feminine appeal to lure men in, right? Like a spider in its web. That reminds me of Surah 29, the spider. Sometimes a woman is promiscuous by association of what happened to her in her past, being taken advantage of, being molested, right? She will either be repulsed by the action or she will become what she knows, right? That overly sexualized behavior. We throw sex around, and sometimes we do it as an act of defiance or rebellion, right? We've been taught right from wrong when we were growing up, hopefully, for the most part. And sometimes, it doesn't always start as adults. It sometimes now in these times, it goes back to teenagers. It goes back to even middle and elementary school level age children, where they see the act being performed maybe in their home. Maybe they see the act being performed on TV, by their favorite artists, rap artists. And we have those who are in the public eye that sell sex. And they've been selling sex for years. And so our children now are gravitating toward these sexual acts, these behaviors. And sometimes it's a sign of defiance against what we've been told and taught, what we can and cannot do with our bodies as women. Sometimes it's to prove that we're grown and old enough to handle a man. And I'm talking specifically in the terms of teenagers or children, right? But we compromise our self-worth over a few minutes of pleasure that will give us lasting pain, right? And sometimes some of us who have chosen a better way of life, sometimes we become self-righteous. And the ones that usually paint themselves as so perfect and so on it are usually the ones that sometimes the main ones who are acting out this behavior. Some of us as women, we're addicted to male attention, right? We're only friends with men. We have a bunch of men friends. We don't have a sisterhood. We don't have a sister circle. So we're just constantly around a whole bunch of men. And maybe this is what we've seen in our home growing up, right? But where's the sisterhood, right? Is there a trust or mistrust for women? Or is it envy and jealousy of women that we can't connect to women on a higher level? Or are we just addicted to attention from men? And I'm going to go into why we are in a few minutes. So he talked about the substance abuse. Substance abuse, when you're dealing with drugs, it will take you out of your natural way of thinking, right? And it will alter your thinking, which in turn alters our behavior, right? It forms a lack of healthy relationships in our lives. Sometimes the clothing we wear, it's very revealing. It's no shame in what we're wearing, how we're displaying ourselves, right? Our friend circle, sometimes when we do have a quote-unquote sisterhood, it's toxic, right? It's a toxic type of bonding because we're hanging around women who advocate this type of behavior, looseness, right? Recklessness. Sometimes we have a high sex drive, right? Sometimes we're unfulfilled in our relationships. So we jump from man to man to man looking for that satisfaction, right? This can also be identified as clinical nymphomania. You've heard of it before, the term nymphomaniac, where you have a woman who's loose, who just goes from men to men, and she cares nothing about herself because she really doesn't understand and respect herself, right? But really, this behavior is really a cry for help. This and these behaviors are really a cry for love. A lot of women who are sexually promiscuous, either they've seen this in their home life when they have grown from stages of their childhood, they've seen this behavior, either they have been sexually abused, the father is not in the picture, he's not in the home, so that protection there is gone, it's invisible. And sometimes when girls do have the father in the home, sometimes they're pulled into other directions where they're not paying attention to the child. And so outside persons come in and they sexually abuse the child. Like, it's so many layers to this. It's so many reasons why. But the underlining reason is that we're searching as women for something that we're void in. So if we haven't had a father figure in the picture growing up, then we're constantly looking for a father. We're constantly trying to look for a man to give us what our fathers did not. We're constantly looking for that attention from a man because we yearn to be loved. We learn to be admired. We yearn to have some type of affection shown towards us so that we can feel important, that we can feel valued, right? And we get lost in it. And because we are not fulfilled with one, then we will hop around and go from another to another to another until we've created a name for ourselves amongst the community where she's fast, she's loose, oh, she's a hoe, right? But not understanding the underlying reasons as to what developed this behavior in the first place, right? So we've developed these behaviors, and as a result of it, we've become other than ourselves. I just want to make sure I'm going over my notes. I just want to make sure I'm touching upon all the things that I wanted to speak about. You know, as Black women, we have such a mystique about us, right? We are women who, when we do begin to learn and discover who we are, our sensuality, right? Our femininity, you know, it creates a certain gratitude in us. It creates a certain type of, what's the word I want to use? Power within us, right? It's an intimate connection that we have discovered about ourselves, right? We've come out of the childhood, teenage years, you know, adolescence, and we're growing and maturing into our womanhood, right? So we're learning things about ourselves in an intimate way. And sometimes when we learn these things, sometimes when we learn these ways about ourselves, we want others to see what we've learned, right? We want others not necessarily to experience us, but we want to show that we are no longer a child, right? We are in our woman stage. And so sometimes we embrace that, and it's a sacredness. It really is. And sometimes we keep that within ourselves, but sometimes we go to the extreme and we do want people to see, or we want to prove how much of a woman or how much we, you know, have grown up to men. And so we have to be very careful with that, because it can be dangerous, because we are sacred beings. We are the second self of Allah. We are naturally and divinely beautiful in all aspects of ourselves. It can be dangerous in the sense that we can become undisciplined with it. We can lose control. And inside of that self-discovery, we can be a magnet to others. You know, people can sense, men can sense when we are naive, when we are beginning to, you know, understand or coming to the realization of our womanhood. And you have some men who sit back and they prey on these type of women. Innocence, right? Our innocence. And they can tell when you're inexperienced and when you really don't know, you know, the full scope of what that your sexual energy is, what it gives off. And sometimes you have men who will really take advantage of that. And so they'll welcome the attention, right? And they'll make you feel warm, and they'll make you feel that they really care about you. And you fall into that trap, and we fall into that trap, and we give ourselves away. And then before we know it, becomes a cycle, right? It becomes an unending cycle, and then it becomes hard to break, right? So we have men also who sometimes when we're in relationships with men, they want to be dominant. They want to be in control, right? And sometimes we become so submissive and we give in to that dominance that we lose ourselves, right? Or we have this misshaped perception of what sexuality really is, right? You know, there's so many layers to this. So many different layers to this. A lot of women also, when they are in toxic relationships, once they leave those relationships, they get divorced. Sometimes that's when they begin to really want to take back their power, right? They've been in a relationship that has been controlling. So now they want to take back control of themselves, their mind, their body, right? And then in that, sometimes we lose ourselves. We want to get over the man, so sometimes we'll give in to that sexual energy, and not knowing that it may lead to a whole plight of unending problems in our future, right? When we are trying to come out of a toxic situation, a traumatic situation, being sexually loose is not going to be the healing for that. It may give you a temporary pleasure. It may give you a sense of power, or, you know, that you are in control yourself, but you're really out of control. We're really out of control because we are giving our power to something that's temporary. We're giving our power away to something that's not going to heal us, but that's going to cause more wounds, right? It's going to open more wounds that's going to have to be repaired in the long run, right? Sometimes we get involved in the thinking and we remove the black man totally out of the picture, right? We want to be feminists. We want to, we have a warped perception because we allow society to dictate to us what our power or where our power lies. And society will teach you that your power lies in your power you, right? And we believe that, and then we fall victim to that. But it's destructive. Feministic behavior is destructive because you now take the power away, or not even the power, but the natural structure of what a man and woman relationship should be built upon. You remove the man and you take back power, but you give the power the wrong energy, right? And it becomes a bigger problem. So destructiveness is a result of being feministic, right? That feministic view. Sometimes we realize later in life that we have allowed the sexual promiscuity action. We find out that it is a cover, or it has been a cover for deeper emotional issues that we suffer from, right? It's not a healer, is what I'm saying. It's not a healer. Some people who are watching this podcast may have differing views of what I'm expressing, but I just want us to really understand what has been bred and produced in us as Black women that has given us a damaging psychological self-view of self. And the only ways that we can come out of this is to go back and study where it began, study the behaviors of those who have come before us, and then we have to commit ourselves to striving to heal and overcome this, because it can be overcome. I know a lot of women who have overcome the promiscuous behavior, right? Ways that we can heal, or things that we can do as a remedy for that womb abuse that we have suffered, the trauma, the loneliness, the emotional disconnect, right? The peer pressure, the things that we have lost in terms of our sacredness, right? The compulsive behaviors that we have adopted, right? The only ways to come out of this is to develop, one, self-love. And I did a podcast, I think that was my second podcast that I did on self-love, learning how to love yourself, learning who you are, learning thyself, knowing thyself, right? There's power in that. So we have to cultivate self-love. We have to accept who we divinely are. We have to cultivate self-worth, right? We have to discipline our urges, right? Sometimes we are so compulsive with the behavior. We're so cyclic with our behavior that, we can begin to love ourselves, but sometimes we need that professional help. We need that professional therapist that can help us understand the behavior, identify the behavior, understand why we are doing it, and to help give remedies and solutions as to how we can come away from that behavior, how we can eradicate that behavior as a lifestyle, and to adopt new lifestyles that are healthy, that are functional, that are thriving, that are positive, right? So we go to the professional help first, and then we learn the spiritual aspect, because there's always a spiritual healing when it deals with anything that we're going through in life, right? So we're disciplining our urges, right? We're taking control of our lives. We're changing our circle. Sometimes the circle of friends that we have, they are toxic for us. If they are ones who encourage negative behavior, loose behavior, who don't hold us accountable, who don't try to bring us anything that's going to help us to self-improve, our self-development, they just want to be ratchet and reckless with life, then we have to change our circle. We have to find a sisterhood that is going to be a support system for us, that's going to be positive, that's going to help to keep us on a path connected to our divinely original selves, that's going to help keep us connected to a path that is divinely connected to God, right? The spirituality aspect of it, being able to talk about the traumas and the pains that we have gone through, that is key, because we have to identify it and get it off of us. Talking about it, even having a support group, finding those who may have gone through similar traumas that you've gone through in life, who are now survivors, who've come out of that, who are survivors of it. These are people we should surround ourselves with, right? having that support group there that we can talk about what happened to us, and it's identifiable with those in this group, that they can give you ways of being able to cope with the trauma and the pain, and being able to eventually heal from it and repair from it, so that you can live a functional and positive life, right? You know, that sexual pleasure, it provides such a rush of the oxytocin, the dopamine, the neurochemicals that create ecstatic feelings of connection and pleasure. But sometimes it can be misappropriated. And, you know, that's why it's important to, when you find yourself first, you discover and give self-love and understand self-worth first. And when you find yourself and you understand yourself, and you are acquainted with your desires and your needs, right? And then you think about that man, right, in your future that you want as your husband, as your helpmeet, as your soulmate. You know, you take from your experiences, you take from lessons that you've learned, and you are discerning in who you allow into your life in an intimate way, in an intimate manner. Because if we're not discerning, it can lead to a lot of difficulty. It can lead to a lot of heartache. It can lead to a lot more repair that has to be done in order for us to become aligned back to ourselves and God again. So when we are looking at finding a mate, or finding that magnetic, right? We have to really take into account who we are. We have to take into account the things that are going to build us up, so that we can have a more enriching understanding of what it is that we desire. And some men, they look good, they have money, they have status in this world, but they may not know how to treat a woman. The minister says that men of this world don't desire a righteous woman, right? So we have to be discerning in terms of what men we are attracting into our lives, how we are using our, not influence, but how we're using who we are to be an example to what we desire or don't desire in men. We have to be really aware of that, because sometimes we can be friendly out of the innocence of who we are. Sometimes we are just naturally, you know, vibrant, you know, naturally attractive, magnetic. But sometimes if we're not discerning, it can draw the wrong type of attention, is what I'm saying. So, you know, being able to understand that self-worth is very key. The life-giving teachings, for me, really changed my life around. And I was on a very destructive path before I came into the life-giving teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I did not have a father in my life, and I searched for love, and I had to discover what love really was. And I had to discover that love did not lie in a man first for me, that I had to discover who I was and whose I was. These life-giving teachings, you know, they really helped me to understand my worth and my value. You know, the life-giving teachings work for us. And you may say, well, there's some sisters who have the teachings and, you know, sometimes their behavior is not righteous. It's reckless. But they have to be applied, because mere belief accounts for nothing unless carried into practice. So because we have this knowledge, that's one thing, that's a start. But then we have to be able to utilize this knowledge, apply what we've learned, right? And these are the practices that can help us break some of those conditionings, break some of those traumas, right? So that we can become renewed and healed and empowered. So we're changing our circle. We're not having the negative influencers in our lives, right? We're forgiving ourselves. Sometimes we can be so hard on ourselves because we have given ourselves away. We've created these behaviors that are so low in our lives. And so we don't forgive ourselves. We blame ourselves. We're hard on ourselves. But we have to practice self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness begins in our heart. It begins in our mind. It begins in our acceptance of self. So we're not defined by our past if we don't allow ourselves to be defined by our past. We're defined with the reawakening of self. We are redefined by us taking back our power because we understand our worth, and we're shifting now those behaviors into from toxic and traumatic to positive and empowering, right? We're taking back our God-given divinity, right? So we have to forgive ourselves. We're not perfect. We have done things that have not always been proper, right? But we have to forgive in order to heal. We have to embrace who we are becoming, who we want to be. And we have to let the past self go so that that part of us can die and we can be rebirthed into something or someone more resilient, right? So we're changing our circle. We're self-forgiving. We are praying. You know, there's power in prayer. I know a lot of women who have been through sexual abuse and they had nowhere else to turn to but God. You know, God has come for you and I. God has come for you and I. He has given us a divine way, a divine assignment over our lives. And our obligation in life is to find our way to that path. If we are disconnected, to reconnect back to that higher source of power, which is God. Not only reconnecting to the God that is over us all, but to reconnect to the God within ourselves. Because the God within ourselves is inside of us. It's there. But because we have gone through so much in life, we've buried that part of us. And because we don't understand ourselves, we don't recognize the God power, divorce-fine power that is within us. So there is a remedy for our promiscuity. There are reasons and layers as to why we have adopted such behaviors. And there's healing at the end of the road. I know a few of us on here who are listening to these words. It's touching some of us because we've gone through it. We've gone through not respecting ourselves. We've gone through not understanding who we are and whose we are. But woe to those who begin to understand who they are and begin to repossess the power that they've given away, right? Those are the blessed amongst us. So we're definitely going to begin to respect ourselves more. We're going to get that psychological help that we need from a therapist, from counseling. And if you're in toxic relationships where you feel that you are being sexually abused, then we have to get out of it. We have to get out of those relationships because they're not going to be the repair and healing for us. They're going to cause us more devastation and destruction to our lives. Look for love within yourself. That's where we have to start. Men will be there for us, right? We have to begin to love and respect ourselves enough to know that we are sacred beings, enough to know that just can't anyone have us, enough to know that we're not going to be loose, giving ourselves away. We're going to protect ourselves, our dignity, self-respect. We're going to protect our sacredness, and we're going to disallow any man with ill intentions to take advantage of that, right? We have to stand in our power. We are owners and possessors of ourselves, of our bodies, of our temples. It is a sacred temple, so we have to treat it as such. So I pray that something I said today has been beneficial in some type of way. I pray that anything I shared that is of good will help us to know that we don't have to be promiscuous. We don't have to give ourselves away. We're better than that. We're more divine than that. We have to be self-respecters of self, and we have to learn how to self-improve. When we apply these life-giving teachings to our lives, it transforms us. You know, the Minister Farrakhan, has given us so much wisdom over the years because he understands how the woman has been devalued over the years. He's given us so many jewels. So if we are just receptive to what he has to say, it can literally change our lives overnight. Don't discount the spiritual wisdom that a man of God who has been divinely chosen for us has given us. Don't discount what he has to say, because he has seen so many things in his ministry, and he has spoken on so many things for the upliftment and the empowerment of women that has helped transform millions of Black women's lives. So the life-giving teachings is life-saving if we make it applicable to our lives. So this is a part of the podcast that I really, really, truly adore and love, because I'm giving respect and honor to a woman who is truly owning her dopeness, who is really striving in this life to be a better version of herself than she was yesterday, years ago, right? This particular sister is a very beautiful sister. She is such a patient woman. She is a beautiful spirit, very soft-spoken, very generous and giving, right? She is faith-filled, and she has a tremendous job on her hands with dealing and developing and extracting the beauty that resonates from her autistic sons. She is the mother of 2 autistic sons, and this sister, she is just so phenomenal, and I don't believe she even knows how phenomenal she is. You know, sometimes we are given duties and responsibilities in our lives that sometimes we question God, why me, right? And God never puts on us more than we can handle, more than we can bear. And just watching this sister and how she deals with life, and how she is so faith-filled, and how she is so patient and understanding and sacrificing, and just, she's such a good example that we're given things in life sometimes that we may not have asked for or understand, but we are a testament to the glory and the power and the strength within ourselves, and we are testifiers of the power of love. And this sister truly has demonstrated and continues to demonstrate the power of love. And I just want to recognize her because she's truly brilliant. I respect her, I love her, and I thank Allah for her and her example and her steadfastness. So I just want to give honor today to my sister for being the Queen So Dope recipient today. Sister Joanne Muhammad. This is my sister, Sister Joanne Muhammad. Such a beautiful, beautiful sister. Sister Joanne, if you are watching today, I just want to say, I thank Allah for you and your example. Don't think that what you do is unseen. And I know you don't do it to be seen of men and women, but you are truly a vessel of strength and brilliance. And I just thank Allah for your example, and you've helped me and inspired me in ways that you'll never know. You'll never know. She is also the host of the prayer line. Every Ramadan we have a prayer line. She's from St. Louis, so she does the prayer line, and everyone from all over the world joins her. And when I first got on that prayer line, her warm spirit embraced me. And I said, you know what? This is a Muslim. She's caring. She's not a punk now. She'll check you if you need to be checked, but she'll do it with love, right? She'll do it with tact. And she's just such a beautiful example. And she made me feel so welcomed, so warmed. And that's how we should make each other feel as Muslims, right? She makes that weak Muslim strong. So I thank Allah for her sacrifice and all that she does for our nation, all that she does for her family. I salute you, Queen. Sister Joanne Muhammad is the Queen So Dope recipient today. So let me read some of the comments that I see. See a few of my comrades have joined on. Sister Amina P. Muhammad says, Assalamu alaikum, beloved sister. I pray that your family members are all well and safe. Wa alaikum salam, beloved, and I pray the same for you. Thank you so much. It ain't nothing like somebody that's praying for you and your family, right? Sister says also that we must hold on to our beautiful treasure chest. Hold on to our chastity, our beautiful best self. It is our gift from Allah. And strive hard to be found in accord with Allah. And wait on Allah to give ourselves our mates at the right time. Thank you, beloved, for the reminders. Pure teaching right there. Sister Mina is teaching right there. And we should. We should definitely hold on to our sacredness and be patient with Allah, because Allah is making someone for you and I. He is. I promise you, He is. Sister Doreen, she says, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. Your message is always so on point. May Allah continue to bless you and all the believers. Love you, sis. Wa alaikum salam, beloved. I love you too, Sister Doreen. And thank you. All praises are due to Allah. Sister Mina said, good information. We give our power away and then lose the beautiful essence of our beautiful self. That's so right, sister. And sometimes we think we can't get that back, right? A lot of women have gone through traumatic experiences and they have been robbed, right, of the sacredness, and they think they can't get that back. I'm telling you, we serve a mighty and powerful God. We can return back to our natural innocent selves with the proper resources and tools and ways of counsel to give us that transformative spirit, that transformative mind, right? We can transform back to the innocence. We don't have to be a victim. We don't have to be a victim. Self-love is the best part of us. We must start with self, Sister Amina says. Sister Kenosha, Assalamu alaikum, family. Wa alaikum salam, beautiful. Sister Mina says, begin to change the narrative. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, beloved, for this new to some and a reminder to others. Understood, my beautiful. Been there, done that. Yes, ma'am. You have to apply it again. Thank you for sharing your awesome self. Much love. Thank you, beloved. Giselle, Gigi. The past pain and scars, we often try to erase them all. What in essence they should be used as an essential tool to move forward and to begin to heal from them. Allow that part of our lives to be the blueprint to our new beginning and our journey to the path of a renewed life. There's power in our pain. Become the powerful, purposeful individual that you were created to be. Woo-wee. That's my sister, y'all. That's my biological sister, teaching and training about using that pain for our power, using that pain to empower ourselves and to heal. Oh, sis, you gave me little chills with that. And that is the sure truth. We can't disregard the pain. We can't disregard the scars and try to erase them. We have to use them to help us in our transformation, right? Ooh, that was powerful, Gigi. Thank you for that. Allahu Akbar, beautiful. Congratulations, a beautiful sister. Congratulations, Queen So Dope. May Allah continue to bless you. Brother Don says, peace, peace, brother. I would describe promiscuity as an addictive behavior. In a movie, Finding Mr. Goodbar, the results are, as any addiction, hospitals, institutions, and deaths. This sexual cycle masks the spirit's beauty of one's mind, body, and soul. This causes withdrawal, mental and emotional pain when not engaging in sex, which encourages the promiscuity. With love of self, love of temple, comes love of God, and the toxic Mr. Goodbar is replaced with the true sources of all love, God, for God is love. Now see, when the black man speaks on this in this kind of way, we need to listen, sisters. We need to listen. That was so profound, Brother Don. So profound. And you're right. And you're on point. I can't even come behind that. Like, you all are dropping so many jewels today, and you're helping so many come out of their belief that they are this promiscuous being. This is who they are. You're helping people to disengage from that belief and to awaken into a renewed self. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for your contributions, for your knowledge, your wisdom, which you're sharing. I thank you for that, because it's really instrumental in helping us in our behavior. So I thank Allah for you all. You know, we learn from each other. We heal from each other, right? We're a support and a reinforcement for each other. So I thank Allah for you all. I thank Allah for these life-giving teachings, how transformative they've been for our lives. You know, getting the study guides. This is what I wanted to share with us. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has study guides for us. Self-improvement, right? The basis for community development. 1 and 2. Plus there's more. There's other study guides. Who is God? You know, these are guides to help us come out of our conditioning, come out of our thinking, that ill thinking, right? So we have the tools and resources. We have to utilize them, right? And don't be ashamed of your past, right? Don't be ashamed of your past. As my sister Gigi said, let it be the inspiration to become more powerful, empowered, and healing within yourself. So I thank Allah for you all. Thank Allah. I pray that your day is successful. I pray that your week is productive. I pray that we all can get healing. in our own way, right? Because what works for one may not work for others, but the healing is there, it's available. So call on your village, change your circle, and transform your life.